Lake Guatavita, Colombia. Believed to be the site of an ancient meteor crater, this circular-shaped mountain lake is at the center of one of mankind's greatest searches. The search for El Dorado, the lost city of gold. Since the 16th century, El Dorado has been the holy grail for fortune hunters. Legends abound about a place full of untold riches somewhere in South America. Yet to this day, the mythical city remains undiscovered. But if such a magnificent place does exist, how has it eluded explorers for centuries? Some believe the answer lies within this mysterious lake.
The story of El Dorado developed from the Lake Guatavita that was within the territory of the Muisca, or the Chibcha people, which was a chiefdom, not quite as high civilization as the Incas or as the Aztecs, but a chiefdom with civilization itself that had a lot of gold.
The ruler in the southern half of the Muisca territory was known as the Zipa, but the conquistadors who arrived there in the 16th century called him El Dorado, Spanish for the Golden One. They gave him this name after observing the Muisca's most sacred ritual. The Zipa would float out on a royal barge to the middle of Lake Guatavita to make offerings of gold to a god believed to live at the bottom of the lake.
It was said that the chief, adorned with resin and then adorned with gold dust, would jump into the water in order to wash the gold dust off, and that this gold would accumulate in that lake, and that golden objects as sacrifices would be thrown into that particular lake. And from that came the belief of El Dorado around Colombia.
In 1912, an excavation of Lake Guatavita was led by British engineer Hartley Knowles. Knowles reported that he had recovered around $20,000 worth of treasure, including golden artifacts. But he also believed much more lay beneath the hardened lakebed. Could Knowles' find be evidence that the story of the Muisca chief is based on truth? If so, just who or what was the so-called god who dwelled at the bottom of the lake?
A number of researchers have suggested that ancient aliens have come to Earth primarily to mine gold. Zechariah Sitchin suggested that these extraterrestrials needed gold to suspend in their atmosphere and preserve their planet.
Is gold something that's really important to space exploration and to astronomy? Well, it actually is very important, and the reason why is because gold is an inert material. It doesn't react with anything. The other thing that's very important about it is that it is a wonderful conductor of electricity. And last but not least is the fact that gold is a perfect reflector of infrared energy. You can use gold blankets to protect spacecraft against the intense heat of a star or any sort of heat source.
Gold is a very rare and valuable element throughout the universe.
Aliens coming to Earth searching for gold. Could such a thing be possible? According to ancient astronaut theorists, it is not only possible, but they claim the proof exists in the numerous texts and legends of the ancient world, like that of the legendary Incan city of Paititi, thought to be located near the southeastern area of Peru.
The conquistadors became obsessed with finding this mysterious city of gold that they've heard was in the jungles of eastern Peru somewhere. They called it Paititi, the Golden City. Stories of Paititi and El Dorado ultimately led to the exploration of the Amazon jungles.
El Dorado and Paititi are frequently confused. I see El Dorado as being that particular gold-producing site that was in northern South America, and Paititi having been another civilization contemporaneous with the Incas in the area of Peru, Bolivia, that is yet to be definitively found.
7,000 miles from Egypt, the dense jungles and rugged mountains of Colombia contain a vast number of archaeological sites. Many treasure hunters believe the legendary city of gold, El Dorado, lies hidden here, somewhere under a thick canopy of trees. While the mythical metropolis has never been found, early in the 20th century, tomb robbers searching along the Magdalena River stumbled upon a gravesite dating back 1,500 years to a pre-Columbian civilization known as the Tolima. Among the funerary objects found there were hundreds of small 2 to 3 inch gold figurines.
Many of those looked like insects and fish. However, out of those hundreds that they found, they also found about a dozen that are eerily reminiscent of modern-day fighter jets. They have a triangular shape, they have an upright tail fin, stabilizers, and a fuselage. And they have nothing in common with anything similar in nature.
Could these gold objects really be proof that Earth has been visited by ancient aliens?
One of the objects shows typical swept wings like with a modern aircraft, and if you compare it to something like a space shuttle, you see that the basic wing shape is very similar to wing shapes for high-speed aerodynamic bodies like a space shuttle is.
There is not a single insect in the world which has got its wings at the bottom. Now, when you exclude the possibility that it's an insect, one of the things which remain is the fact that this is actually, yes, what it looks like, a plane.
In 1997, German aviation experts including Algund Ingboom and Peter Belting set out to prove the speculation by building a scale model replica of the Gold Flyer, fully equipped with landing gear and a working engine.
It was rather simple because we don't need to put much parts to this shape because this shape is perfect. Everything was already done by the native people 2,000 years ago.
They did not add an inch or remove an inch. They just essentially blew the little thing into a larger size. I mean, this is sensational that pre-Columbian culture knew about aerodynamics.
Once completed, the remote-controlled flyer took off down a makeshift runway and flew.
When you see this thing taking off, you really feel that this is the real deal.
It was a very successful test and showed us how perfect ancient people were working out aerodynamic design. What shows you that there must be something happened. We are not quite sure how it did, but that it did.
This is applied science. This isn't just thinking somewhere. This is people going out there and making sure and proving with eyes to see, anybody can see this, that this is real, this is genuine. This little thing which sits in a museum could fly.
Uzengeli, Turkey, 1997. After years of research, American explorer David Allen Deal has become convinced that the biblical story of Noah is, in fact, historical, and is on the hunt to find the remnants of the Ark. At an elevation of more than 7,000 feet near Mount Ararat, where the Bible says Noah's Ark eventually landed, he stumbles upon the ruins of an ancient settlement.
What he discovered is what's known as the lost city of Noah or Nashua.
The ancient Armenian historian Moses of Horon identified Nashwan as the place of Noah's first descent. Could this be the first settlement in a post-flood world? A recent archaeological dig reportedly uncovered something remarkable. The region may contain millions of graves.
Because Noah's tomb is said to be here, a huge cemetery has grown up around this lost city of Noah, and people from all over the Middle East in ancient times insisted on being buried in this area.
Researchers suggest that Nashwan is just one of many points of evidence that support the notion of a historical Great Flood.
What we now know from incredible amount of evidence coming from every part of the world is that around 10,800 BC, the world was devastated by some kind of impact event. And this devastated every part of the landscape. What today we might refer to as a nuclear winter that blotted out the sun, the moon, and the stars.
There's something called the Uccello horizon that's been found all over the world. It's like a layer of black ash. This suggests there was a great conflagration that took place, great fires and burning, and it left this layer all around the world, and it dates to between 11,000 and 13,000 years ago. So this does suggest something very serious took place at this time.
Could this layer of ash, found roughly 50 feet deep in the Earth's soil, be evidence of a devastating global event? According to geologist Dr. Robert Schock, a worldwide cataclysm and the resulting layer of ash was likely created by a solar flare, a sudden flash of increased brightness on the sun.
Based on my analysis of the evidence, is that there was a major solar outburst. The sun essentially erupted. This caused in a flash the glaciers to melt virtually instantaneously. It caused evaporation of water. This not only led to the rising sea levels, flooding the coastal areas, and torrential rains. We have physical evidence of this in the geological record.
The island of Pohnpei, more than 2,500 miles southwest of Hawaii, completely isolated in the Pacific Ocean. This Micronesian landmass is home to just 34,000 people, mainly farmers and fishermen. But there is one area of the island that is completely uninhabited: the lost city of Madol. The native islanders believe this ancient site is cursed. And it is also home to some of the most mysterious archaeological ruins in the world. Built on a coral reef just off the eastern coast of Pohnpei and sprawling more than 200 acres, Madol consists of 92 smaller man-made islands connected by canals. According to historians, this ancient city, often called the Venice of the Pacific, was the capital of the Saudeleur dynasty that ruled from about 500 to 1628 AD.
This ancient city housed the Saudeleurs, the kings of that time. So it has their houses, it has feasting areas, it has tombs. So there's a whole number of areas that each of these islets supported.
Most archaeologists agree that construction of these artificial islands began sometime in the 13th century. Each has been formed with columnar basalt, a black rock that forms when basaltic lava from a volcano cools in the form of columns.
There are a number of columnar basalt outflows across Pohnpei itself, and we know of several of these outcrops that were used to mine the basalt. They were then transported to the area of Madol and then placed to create these small islets.
But how did the native people living here 800 years ago manage to build 92 islets out of giant basalt columns? Researchers estimate that each stone log used to construct the megalithic structures weighs between 5 to 50 tons, stacked to form walls as high as 25 feet tall and 17 feet thick. Archaeologists believe that it was an undertaking that most likely would have required all 25,000 island inhabitants to complete.
Around the ruins of Madol are many canals, which researchers and archaeologists say were the routes taken by boats to move these basalt columns across and around the island to construct the huge megalithic site.
Mainstream scholars insist native people built Madol using ropes, rollers, and rafts. But attempts to prove this theory have failed.
So if you add up all of the stone logs, you have a weight of 750,000 or so metric tons. That's a lot. If you were to move maybe 2,000 tons a year, you might be able to get it built over about 3 centuries. We're talking about a major, massive effort here. The kind of effort that you would see in the construction of the pyramids in Egypt.
But could there be another explanation for how these ancient people were able to move such massive rocks miles across the island and into place in the ocean without the help of modern machinery? According to local legends, the ancient builders used a much more profound method of construction, an advanced anti-gravitational technology that ancient astronaut theorists believe may explain many of the world's mysterious megalithic sites.
Some legends state that the stones were actually flown from one part of the island to another, or levitated some way to get them up to such high areas of the main construction.
This is very reminiscent of what researchers call auditive levitation, which was a technique of raising heavy stones by matching the sound frequency of matter, rendering it weightless and moving it into place.
The people themselves, who still to this day live there in Pohnpei, say that this place was not built by us. It's been here before we arrived. And they themselves say that basalt blocks were moved as if by ghost hand. That is why the natives call Madol also the city of ghosts.